All right, everybody, welcome back in to Sports and Money KC. I am Ben Parker. Privileged to have all of you on board as always. We're right in the middle of a whole bunch of shows. We're right in the middle of draft study, draft work, and right in the middle of it all. Your beloved New York Giants bring in Russell Wilson. So we're going to talk about that for a few minutes tonight. We won't take a long time to talk about it because we've got, frankly, the entire offseason to do so if we want to. But then we'll talk about it in a few minutes. There's a number of ways to take this, to be quite honest about it, and I'll cover some of those ways. And I want to get an idea for how you guys feel as well. Those of you who are Giants fans, trying to kind of sort your way through what you think and feel about it. But I'll talk some about what I ultimately felt about it here for the New York Giants. So they pick up they already pick up Jameis Winston a few days ago, right? Added him in. And the obvious question was, well, is that it? Is it Winston plus a draft pick? And is it Winston plus another veteran? And so anyway, here they've gone ahead and made their decision. They've gotten Russell Wilson in at 1 year, $10.5 million. I'm sure some of y'all saw the early reports that had it at 1 year, $21 million. And of course, it's $10.5 million with bonuses and motivational stuff that could go up to $21 million. So if he hits certain barriers and marks, he could get up to $21 million for just this one season. So not a bad deal as far as signing veteran quarterbacks goes. You're not locked in for 3 years, so that's a good thing. Just right off the bat. The number one direction I want to take off this though is that it seems to me. And this was what we were hearing for the past several weeks since the regular season ended, and even a little bit before that. It seems to me like the Giants want to compete in every single game this year. Every single week this year in the 2025 season, it seems like the Giants really just want to make sure that they're a part of getting a chance to win that game. Whether it's Russell Wilson or whether it's Jameis Winston, they just want to make sure that they've got some kind of a guy out there who can throw the football, who is experienced, who can navigate the pocket, all of that. And despite their faults, flaws, and handicaps, Jameis Winston and Russell Wilson give you that. So I assume here that it's Russell Wilson being the starter, Jameis Winston the backup. We'll talk about the draft here in a second. I definitely want to get to that. It feels like, and we felt like this. I think Giants fans, you probably know it better than any of us here on the outside because I'm definitely on the outside looking in. But it feels like there's just a lot of pressure to compete this year. And maybe that's not healthy for the franchise. And maybe that's not best long term for the franchise. And maybe that's not how you grow or build a franchise. All fair statements to make and questions to ask, but that's what it feels like. It really feels like Mara, the owner, has really kind of put his foot down a little bit in terms of, hey guys, we want to look good next year. Not Super Bowl good, but we need to look better. And I really do think that he likes Joe Shane and he likes Brian Daboll. I really do, and I like Brian Daboll, and I'm still kind of wait and see on Joe Shane. I like some of what Shane's done, and others maybe wait and see. But it feels like Mara, the owner, likes them, wants to keep them, but doesn't want the losing to continue. And it feels like the competing needs to really pick it up a lot. We don't need to have any more laydowns and get blown out. We don't need to have any more, well, it was a rough season, or hey, we're a little under talented. I mean, it kind of feels like every excuse that could be made has been made. And I'm not accusing the Giants front office or coaching staff of making excuses. I'm just saying from a football standpoint, everything that we could possibly say about not winning has already kind of come and gone. It's year four now for these guys to try to put it together, and it feels like it feels like if the Giants don't compete this year close to around 500, it feels like everybody's out the door, right? Joe Shane's probably out the door. Brian Daboll, I think, is definitely out the door. Winston would be out the door, even though he got a 2 year deal, and Russell Wilson would be out the door. I mean, everybody's gone. It's eerily similar in that way to what the New York Jets, excuse me, were facing heading into the 24 season. which is something I said about the Jets with Aaron Rodgers and with Robert Saleh and with the GM Douglas. I said last year, 12 months ago, I said if the Jets don't win, everybody's out. Like they are going to completely clean house. And that was true. And I think it's true now. I really do feel like this is kind of, and I'm not reinventing the wheel here or coming up with anything that other people aren't saying when I say that. But it really does feel like either the Giants compete this year and they threaten to make the playoffs, or everybody's out the door, even Shane, even Winston. I feel like all four of them are just gone. And I don't know that you have to do a tear down and rebuild. In fact, I wouldn't advise a tear down and rebuild, but it does feel like that the top people, the people at the top, would all be gone. So when you look at the Russell Wilson signing on top of the Jameis Winston signing, it feels like that's the direction they were going in here. And we've been hearing rumors of that all offseason, right? Almost every rumor, not every rumor, it's rumor season. So you hear everything. But we consistently kept hearing the rumors that the Giants were after veteran quarterbacks, right? You start with Matthew Stafford with the Rams, and then that goes away, and then they're fishing around. It felt like they were in the Sam Darnold thing until Darnold just went straight to the Seahawks, and Geno Smith went to the Raiders, and so we were hearing the Giants connected to just about just about every veteran quarterback out there. Now, not trying to slam Aaron Rodgers here. He catches enough strays as it is. But I'm glad the Giants did not go down the Aaron Rodgers path. I just did not see any way in which that would work out for Aaron or for the Giants. I think I've seen enough of Aaron in New York, unfortunately. So I just didn't see any way that that should happen. But I'm okay with the Russell Wilson thing. Um, let's start with the negatives, right? For Russell Wilson, production is down. This was his worst production season all put together in terms of just actual raw numbers. I think he was what, 2,600 yards, 2,700 yards, and then the touchdown to interception ratio um, wasn't bad, but was one of the lower ones of his career. Give me one second here. Yeah, a 16 TDs, five interceptions, which he didn't even play the whole year, so that answers for part of the raw statistics. But he did look better in this year with the Giants than he did back in 2022, the first year with Denver. I thought the first year with Denver, Russell Wilson really, really looked like, and the statistics don't completely bear this out, but he really looked like he was not ready to kind of keep playing and competing. You get back into year two in Denver, I thought it was a huge step up. He really looked a whole lot better. And then last year in Pittsburgh, while it wasn't pretty, and I don't think it was as good as year two in Denver, I still thought we saw enough out of Russell Wilson that he's playing, he's competing, he's studying, he's working, he's still got something left in the tank to offer from a week to week basis. Now, I'm well aware of the fact, and I know Steelers fans are well aware of the fact, and Giants fans are well aware of the fact that Russell Wilson faded down the stretch this year. You had those last 4 or 5 weeks, and it just wasn't as pretty, and it kind of all, a lot of it went away. Not all of it, but a lot of it. So, you still have to ask the question, well, how much gas is in the tank? But I think that's why you have Jameis Winston. Now, the Jameis Winston experience, as everybody likes to call it. Uh, do you want to be on that for the entire season? I don't think so. But Winston, we saw last year, we saw that Jameis Winston can really sling it. And we've known that his whole career. And then, he can throw for 4, 5, 600 yards in a game. It's possible. But then he can throw for 4 interceptions the next week, or in the same game sometimes. So it's an up and down roller coaster. But the point is, the pressure is on in New York for the Giants. It's coming from Mara. It's coming from the fans. It's coming from the media, but it's mostly coming from Mara. And while he wants this all to work out, Mara wants to keep Shane, and he wants to keep Dayball, and he wants the Giants to kind of keep building and growing. It really feels like he's ready to rip the top off if they can't compete this year. And so it's compete this year, and then next year we'll see. So if they look decent this year and each week they're competing with the Commanders, the Cowboys, the Eagles, they're in those games, they're not getting ripped out. They're collecting some wins. I don't know what the mark is, and I don't know if Mara may not even have a mark that he's looking at. But I've got to think it's got to be 8, 9 wins that they're pushing towards to at least make them feel like they've got a chance. The roster is getting better. It has been slow, but the roster is getting better. You look at the talent around it, it's getting better. You look at a couple of the free agent signings they did this year, it is getting better. So I think that's the reason for the Russell Wilson signing and for the Jameis Winston signings. I think that's the reason for both of them combined because you don't want to sign one of these guys, have one of them get injured, and have no real serious backup here. So I think that's the answer as to why you have both Winston and Russell Wilson. Now, I'm sure somebody, and it's an intelligent question, could ask the question, well, if you're going to do all this, if this was the plan all along, I don't think it was the plan all along, but if this is where we ultimately ended up, then why not just bring Daniel Jones back for one more year? At least when healthy, he too lets you compete and he too allows you to have a chance and you could sign a Winston behind him, right? But I just think the Giants were done. I think they were past done dealing with the Daniel Jones saga after last year. So I think that's the real reason. Of course, I'm not sure anybody's surprised by that. So anyway, why Winston? Why Wilson? Because they need to compete now. Is that going to be win now? I don't know, but at least it gives them a chance. And listen, I talked about the talent on the roster. You know about Malik Neighbors there at receiver, so that gives somebody for them to throw to with these two quarterbacks. Slayton, of course, can go deep. I can imagine a few games this year with Wilson being able to throw the deep moon ball and with Winston being able to throw the deep ball, right? Both these guys can throw the deep ball. I can imagine Slayton and Neighbors having a pretty good season here. Okay, so that takes the pressure off the top of the offense. And then with the running backs here, when you got Tyrone Tracy sitting there, and now all of a sudden Brian Dable has something to work with. And I mentioned earlier, I really do like Brian Dable. I think he's an excellent offensive mind, and I think he's a solid football coach overall, is where I've got him. So I think the Giants did the right thing here by keeping Dayball and by keeping Shane, by keeping this together. I would love to see them actually get 2 or 3 more years. I don't think that's going to happen unless this year looks decent. But Russell Wilson and Winston, I think that's the reason why you bring those two guys in. It may not be exciting, and if you're a fan base out there, and you want to drop in the comments how you really feel about it, man, hit me up with it. Let me know. I'm sure long term, we all know this is not the answer, but this is where they're at this year. Now, one other thing I do like about this, I actually think one long-term bit of help that does allow you to do, and that is in the draft. It really allows you to draft with that number 3 overall pick. It really allows you to draft anybody you want. And whether that's, I don't think that's quarterback now. I would be surprised if they go Cam Ward or Shador Sanders. Matter of fact, I think the Giants think that Cam Ward and Shador Sanders are going to go in the top 2 picks. I think that's what the Giants franchise feels like. Okay. It doesn't mean the Giants can't draft somebody later, like a Jackson Dart in the second round, or Tyler Shugg in the third round, or Jalen Milroe or Quinn Ewers in the late third round. It doesn't mean any of that. The Giants can still draft a young quarterback, but I would be very surprised at this point if the Giants were to draft a Cam Ward or a Shador Sanders with that third pick overall. What I do expect to happen now, though, I think the Giants now feel at liberty, and this wasn't the intent, I don't think, but what it does open up, the Giants now, if they want to, can draft the best player available sitting there at number 3. So whether that's Abdul Carter, the tremendous edge rusher, if he's the guy that falls to 3, you can take him, and you don't have to pass him up for a quarterback. And if it's sorry, I'm losing track here. Travis Hunter, if it's Travis Hunter, the all-world guy out of Colorado, you don't have to pass him up for a quarterback. If you're getting offers at number 3, and I would entertain those offers, if you're getting offers at number 3 to trade back to 5 or 6 or 7 because somebody else has their heart set on Abdul Carter or Travis Hunter, then there's no reason they can't get a couple of nice picks. I'm not interested in collecting fifth and fourth rounders to move out of that 3 spot, but if I can catch another first or a second rounder to move back to 5, 6, or 7, then you still get a tremendously good football player at one of those slots. You could add a Tedero at McMillan if you wanted to upgrade the wide receiver core. You could add one of those defensive linemen. There's any number of guys you can go with all through there. So I would listen to offers, but I do think ultimately this frees the Giants up, and that is healthy. All right, when you have that third overall spot, and you're not sure you love these young quarterbacks, or you're not sure you have time as a coaching staff or a general manager to develop one of these young quarterbacks, it is healthy that you can draft an Abdul Carter or a Travis Hunter, and I think ultimately that's what the Giants are going to do here. So we'll see. I ultimately like this. But if I were a fan of the Giants, it wouldn't be very exciting to me because it does kind of push the quarterback question off for another year. So anyway, that's where I'm at on this. The Giants are in a little bit of a sticky situation here because they want to keep growing and building, and they're doing that. They're growing and building. They're it's taking some time, but they're getting there. You're not ultimately going to be able to get anywhere if you don't have a quarterback. They've got a quarterback for this year, two guys for this year. So maybe they answer the ultimate long-term quarterback question next year in next year's draft, and it looks like there are some decent guys in next year's draft too. So stay tuned for that. But at least for now, competing. And then you can imagine how much better the roster looks on defense if you add Abdul Carter, or on offense and defense if you add Travis Hunter, or if you trade back and all of a sudden now you've got an extra second round pick, plus maybe, I'm not even going to trot out names here because there's all kind of directions you could go. But stay tuned to that. Stay tuned to all that as well. All right. I really appreciate everybody watching. This was just a short video. I wanted to talk about the Russell Wilson thing. And again, if you're a Giants fan out there, let me know how you feel about it. Have a great one. This is Sports and Money. Bye.